Hey everybody, I'm obviously not here tonight. I'm at the hospital. Hopefully by this point, Trip has arrived finally. He's healthy, Mama's healthy, and I'm happy. Come see us if you haven't seen a picture yet. Look for one. I'm sure that we put that out there. But come see us. Come visit us in the hospital. We'll be here for a couple days. But I did want to give you a little message continuing with the series we've been on this summer. If you haven't been here, what we've been doing is this thought of come to me from Matthew 11. And the first week we talked about come to me in your mess. And the truth is we've all got them. Now you can say that you don't have a mess. You can say you don't have anything wrong. But if we spend all our life trying to get everything right before we come to Jesus, then we've missed the whole point of the message. He wants us to come to him exactly like we are. Allow him to do the healing. And then last week he says, come to me when you're tired and burdened. And what we talked about and where we went with this, we talked about the woman at the well in John chapter 4. And we carry these things sometimes from stuff that happens to us, sometimes from things that we choose. Some of them are big events that happen to us, and some of them are small things that build up in our life. But either way, they become things that make us tired, worn out, and they just honestly get heavy. And then tonight, and all these connect because it's one passage, we're going to talk about come to me for a different kind of work. You see, Jesus says these words, take my yoke. Choose my work. See, what a yoke was literally this big thing that you would take and they would put over the oxen or put over the animal, and they would weigh on their neck, and it was how they were controlled. It's what controlled their life. It's what controlled the kind of work that they did. And what Jesus gives us is this message of take my yoke. And what I want to do is look for just a minute at a passage in Luke chapter 19 from a guy that we've all sang about our whole life, Zacchaeus. In Luke 19, in verse 1, it says, he entered Jericho and was passing through, and behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus, who was a chief tax collector and was rich. He was seeking to see who Jesus was, but on account of the crowd, he could not, because he was small in stature. So he ran on ahead and climbed up into a sycamore tree to see him, for he was about to pass that way. When Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today. You see, Zacchaeus is somebody that we can all relate to on this, because we're all carrying something. You're all choosing some kind of yoke to bear. You're all choosing some kind of work, some kind of path to follow. And Zacchaeus was somebody who really had some things going for him. You know, we see it's obviously highlighted. He was a wealthy man. He was a chief tax collector. He had power in his life. But all that stuff is really pretty meaningless if we don't have Jesus. All that stuff can get really heavy. And I think for Zacchaeus, that's exactly what's happened. It was getting so heavy that he wanted to see this man. He wanted to see what was different about this man. He was willing to go and to climb up in this tree that we've sang about since we were little kids in order to just get a sight of this man. You see, I think that Zacchaeus had been looking for years for a different kind of yoke, a different kind of work. And sometimes that can be a spiritual burden that we're carrying that God doesn't want us to carry. And sometimes that can be just the lifestyle we've chosen, like Zacchaeus. And we can feel trapped and feel like we have no choice but to keep walking with this yoke around our neck. And then verse 6. So he hurried and came down and received him joyfully. When they saw it, they all grumbled. He has gone in to be the guest of a man who is a sinner. And Zacchaeus stood and said to the Lord, behold, Lord, half of my goods I give to the poor. And if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I restore it fourfold. And Jesus said to him, today salvation has come to this house, since he also is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. See, this reaction is pretty natural by the religious people. You're going to talk about that a little bit in your groups. They have this reaction again, similar to the way they did when Jesus hung out with Matthew. They say he goes and he's eating with sinners. He's welcoming a known sinner. He's eating in the house of a known sinner. But I love what Zacchaeus does here. He doesn't hesitate. He doesn't cower, because Jesus has shown Zacchaeus that there is something different A man who probably thought that he was just trapped in this life and there was no other option. And Zacchaeus now knows that there's something different. So while he's hearing all these people talk about him, he's hearing them bash him the way he's heard for years. Like, he's got no chance. He's got no chance of being a follower of God. Is what he's heard, is what he's known. And then he stands up and he says, hey, Jesus, I'm going to make this right. I'm going to give all of this back, and I'm going to even give back more by far than what I'm required. And see, what he was doing when he was doing this was he was taking this yoke, and for him, it'd been stealing, defrauding, being hated. It was this thing that he carried around his whole life that he wasn't ever going to be able to make right. And he was having it lifted off by Jesus. And he was choosing a new, different kind of work, one that led to freedom, one that led to salvation. He was listening to Jesus when he said, come to me, take my yoke.